Hello and welcome to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify and YouTube.
I want to honour the traditional owners of the lands where you are living. They took care of these lands for thousands and thousands of years and then shared this land with us at great cost to their own lives. I want to thank them for the care they have given and continue to give, to sit on the earth, listen and care for country. I also want to thank the fairies and crones who came before us in history to fight for our human right to love fiercely.
Talk about.
No.
Pop music. Talk about. Jane Meredith is an author and a longtime teacher of magic and ritual. Her books have gone all over the world. Draghon, an earth witch and priestess, and is passionate about plant and animal wisdom. Do you think that we as humans in school and in our jobs are encouraged by the government or by our teachers to be authentically in our power, to be our true selves?
Was that your experience at school, Peter?
My experience was the opposite of that.
I love this name, reclaiming. I feel like each person can take that and reclaim. It might be within themselves or something that they were never really given or offered about their relationship to nature, magic, and the soul. Reclaiming is the name of a contemporary magical tradition, famous, I guess, for integrating political activism, magic and ritual, and personal development. Reclaiming is a tradition that more or less makes it up as we go along. It's often called an anarchist tradition within the realm of pagan and magical traditions. Each person gets to kind of find for themselves what works for them and meet with other people in that container and co-create something magical, beautiful, rebellious, whatever it might be.
Reclaiming our power and our autonomy and create our own rituals and celebrations and ceremonies that work for us. Definitely about reconnecting with the earth and with the elements, remembering that we are human animals. It was in the 80s, I suppose, with the women's spirituality movement, in that reconnecting women as our own spiritual power and our own autonomy rather than patriarchal father figure focused. I guess it was about creating new ways of being in the world and celebrating together.
I'm interested in discovering a way to break the back of the misogyny of this country. If I was to ask anybody, I'd probably ask you two. You probably have a clue about what to do. If you're black, handicapped in some way, if you're a woman even in this country, you know, they're trying to bring back the religious bill, take away rights that women fought for. If you're an original person from any country, you're basically told you have no power, and the whole system works towards that, not letting you have any power. You two have been involved in a movement that's all around the world, empowering people to claim their power. Is there hope that we can have a big change?
In reclaiming, we try and look at power analytically and also magically. We try and break power down into a number of different ways that it operates. We have this term called power over, which is what we often experience where we come up against institutions of power, whether they're police, whether they're education systems, whether they're government systems. Persons, people, or institutions are taking power over other people's lives and directing them, often against what we might wish. Not always, but often. So that power over concept is something that we can choose to engage with when we find it useful, but also can step aside from. And so then we have two other sorts of power that we talk about, which is power within, which is the innate power of breathing and life that each person has. That power to think my own thoughts, for example, be kind to my own body, believe in myself, or to listen to that inner voice. And then we also have a concept called power with, which is where we join with other people, like the four of us today on this interview maybe. So we're each bringing our power within into this situation, and we're creating a power with situation where four people actually creating something more than any one of us could do alone. It has wider ripples. And I mean, perhaps that's all a very long, complicated way of saying show up. Each person has to show up as allies when other people we can see are being negatively affected, and also show up for ourselves.
I get those elements sometimes, but not all the time. And then when I get it and I go, right, projecting with love and what you believe, because where I've been brought up as a Catholic, being gay was taboo. I used to pray all the time. And then one time I said, that's it. I'm not praying anymore. I'm going to hell because I'm gay. All of a sudden, I just heard this voice, I am here. That was it. So I go, oh my God, that's fine. You know.
So this is a very powerful tool, and people believe in that, and it's indoctrinated us from very young. Megan, I know that you have a Facebook group, The Witches, creating rituals to make change.
There's one document called our Principles of Unity, and that's really the only requirement for somebody to be called part of Reclaiming is to agree to accept and honour the Principles of Unity. And we've just gone through a very intense international process of rewriting the Principles of Unity. Commit to centering people of colour who are witches and part of the reclaiming community, being accountable for the work that we're doing in decolonisation. What you're talking about changing paradigms, Peter, is to really change the way that we see the world and the way that we interact in the world. And part of that is to reconnect with ancestral knowledge, because each human being on this planet has ancient connections that we've survived for thousands and thousands of generations. And it's like there's been a profound forgetting in the last 2,000 years. And it's time for us to remember who we are. Reclaiming the activist tradition, the peace movement, environmental activism, and anti-racism, remembering that we're all humans and that we're interconnected with all the other species on the planet. We need to hear the call of the earth's creatures, the system that we are part of, start making real changes and wake up and remember who we are.
The reclaiming practices, I imagine you're raising your energy through songs and through practices, and then you're using prayer in some form with tools to unleash that energy out into the world to affect change in some way. Or is it more like let go, let God?
I think it might be different for every person. And maybe every person in every instance. In one ritual, I might have really powerful experience of our intention going out into the world. And in another ritual or experience, I might have a really deep, still knowing, a bit like your voice that you spoke about before that you heard. And another ritual, I might feel like, oh, well, that was okay. But other people might be saying, oh, that was really profound. It's not uniform. Coming together with other people is a particular type of magic. Most of us who do this work also have like a solo practice. Different things will suit different people. Like some people are drummers and dancers, and some people are like meditators and quite internal. And so when we come together in a ritual, we try and take the best of all of those things and have a mix of ways of engaging. Pieces where you're talking with other people, pieces where you're kind of in a meditative place, pieces where you're dancing, moving, as you said, singing, raising energy, to put those together in a pattern that logically will work to create this change. One thing you said about like releasing it on the world, like definitely we do that. We do it all the time. But really one of the main things that happens is that it offers change for the people who are there. Each ritual that I attend, it reminds me of my magic, empowerment and my connectedness, and maybe sends me forth a bit clearer, a bit more healed, a bit stronger, a bit more ready to voice my passions or live them out. We're all connected to the web of life. Each choice that we make and each thing that we do and say, I do think makes a difference.
What happens between the worlds affects all the worlds.
We have different colours in ourselves. You can identify those as elements or a connection to a particular preference. How do we connect with elements?
There's many songs and chants about the earth being our body, water being our blood, air being our breath, fire, our heartbeat, and spirit being the essence of who we are. Casting circles, for example, may involve using our bodies or our breath with an earth-based practice within elements of magic. We might be doing spells, traditional witchy spells that are always fun. Making a brew, for example. Working with the element of water, that might involve a trance. Fire element might be around looking at different ways that we can raise energy and move energy. Air element, using our voice, chants, weave magic, maybe to state your intention, for example. That's how we create spirit, really. It's a combination of earth, air, fire and water that you get this fifth element that some people call spirit.
Our Darwin listeners are the centre, their spirit. And I know, Jane, you're not fire. So which element of us four are you, Jane?
Oh, I better get in fast and take air. I really love thinking and words and kind of ideas.
Air. Oh, awesome. That's good. So you're air. What are you, Megan?
Oh, definitely earth, Peter.
Earth. He's definitely fire, would you say?
Oh, yeah. A bit water. I love water.
Okay, you
and
go water.
I lose myself in water. Yeah, I do love fire because I've created a lot in fire. I love fire too.
I did a little quiz just before I was earth, but I'll take the water right now.
It's definitely earth.
Jane, the song that you've sent me is called Woman of the Earth. Tell us about this song and why you love it.
This is a song by an Adelaide band, Spiral Dance. A group of people bring their magic. Singing of each song was like a spell, a ritual that they were doing with each other, with the group, the band and the song and the words they'd written, and with the audience. This song is their kind of signature song.
and we'll sing the songs that the old ones sang, for the magic now has caught us.
Hi, I'm Megan from Byronshire. I'm a Red Rebel and I love listening to Fierce FM.
It's lovely to meet strong, empowered spiritual people and learn from them about what love means to them.
Another magic that I work with a lot, as well as elements, myths, and goddesses, is the Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition. There's this simplicity about love. Perhaps we tend to get really, really complex about it. Oh, love, that's the same as life force. Oh, that's the same as, atoms and elemental particles. That each breath that I breathe out is kind of taken by the trees of this beautiful planet and breathed in and then breathed back to me in a way that I can breathe. Like I'm going to call out love. The cicadas and the grasshoppers and whatever, the butterflies outside going about their business. I'm going to call out love. A very expansive feeling about that.
Wow. There's love and fear. That's just my belief, love and fear. And then when you're directing love to the planet, directing love to that person, then they're unwell or whatever. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about, like just love in general?
It's interesting to polarize it with something like you're saying love and fear. And that makes me think of like expansion and contraction. And, they're both a natural part of being born and dying, of each breath, in-breath and out-breath, of our hearts beating. We have that polarization, that expansion, contraction happening through all our lives. If you want to put fear up there, I'm going to say, well, in some ways, that's also a part of love. Perhaps it's the turning our back or the closing down momentarily, but perhaps that is what enables us to then come back and open again.
You talk a lot about the dark and the light goddesses. Love is all the colours. We talked earlier about the government, our schooling, our religious growing up, how they try to make one thing shameful and wrong and sin and avoid it. And the other thing is good behaviour. Well done, we'll reward you for this. So what's your take on all that?
There's a split. Some people say we're bipedal and our brain's in two halves, so maybe there's some biological inclination towards splitting things in half and polarizing things. But beyond that, both parts of our brain are in the one head and the one body. The two sides of our body operate cooperatively together. So I think there is something greater than that split story. And the dark and the bright goddess being split, that's the beginning of the patriarchy, to split up the power of the feminine, the life-giving powers of the world, and to begin to split it. And then later, as the pantheons in different cultures evolve, the goddess gets split again into many, into 3, into 6, into 8, into 12, each time less powerful than when she was the one. But the dark goddess, which I do work with a lot, many people are afraid of the dark goddess, but I think perhaps unnecessarily, or because we've been, sold a story around it. For me, the dark goddess is a place of birth and death and mysteries and initiation and dreams. It's like being afraid of the night. Like, we might be afraid of the night, or we might learn to love it, for all sorts of reasons. And in either case, love it or fear it, it's inevitable. It happens every day. We get a night. Recognizing maybe the separations, but more powerful around the integration.
Share for me the name of the dark goddess, or the names if there's more than one.
I work a lot with a dark goddess called Ereshkigal, who's from Sumerian mythology. She is Inanna's sister. So Inanna is the bright goddess and Ereshkigal is the dark goddess. There are many others from Greek mythology. There's Hecate and Persephone, Kali, the Indian goddess. Many people have intimate relationship with Kali that has a living worship tradition currently on the planet. Away from mythology, in fairy stories, the hag or the witch or the evil queen, like all of those figures that take on this very powerful feminine initiatory role that is often, it's easy to cast it as evil or bad or scary, but when you look closer, it's actually very powerful. And it's the thing that is creating the transformation in those stories.
Oh la la, there's so much to ask, but I'm going to go to Megan now. Tell us about love for you.
Love is feeling life coursing through my veins, feeling the quickening of my pulse and the delight in experiencing connection with others or with another, with the element. Going out in the morning and plunging yourself into the ocean and feeling that tingle of delight, cool salt water on your skin and the sun warming your body when you come out of the ocean. Feelings that bubble up inside me when I'm with a beloved, that I experience with some of the animals, fairy ones in my life too. It's about feeling alive and my senses feeling alive and feeling connected. My sense of it is it bubbles up from within me and pours out. And there's many stories of the goddess where her love pours out and blesses the earth, this constant source of renewing and connection. Even though it might be deeply connected with terrible things that are happening in the earth and loss of biodiversity and ecological deterioration that we're experiencing at the moment, but there's still a huge amount of love there, even in the grief and the sorrow and the loss. It's having the capacity to be able to hold that and bear witness, an act of love. Putting your body on the line on the streets for the earth is an act of love. Love is the law.
Megan, you have made a commitment to showing up for different things for the earth. You've made commitments to reclaiming, I imagine, to be where you are as a teacher in reclaiming. There's been quite a commitment involved in developing yourself, following through with ritual and initiations. How does that commitment work for you in love? Does the connection with nature or with furry friends connect similarly with humans? Because our listeners are mostly human.
Are we?
So you think.
Well, I'm from the stars, so I'm not from here.
Yes, well, exactly. Many of us would say that we're all, beings of stardust.
Spirit in a human body having a human experience.
Exactly, but our physical bodies are made of stardust too, because everything with the earth is made of stardust.
When you get this energy, you can turn that phone on yourself and start taking photos and you'll see it. And that's the energy of love that I felt, that high vibration.
There's tantalizing glimpses of those energetic forms that we're connected with. Going back to your question, Peter, about commitment and initiation, I am an initiated priestess and I have made a lifelong commitment to serving the earth. And I'm not an initiate within reclaiming, because one of the interesting things about reclaiming, and I think it's part of our anarchist tradition, is that you're not required to be an initiate of reclaiming to be a teacher or to have any role within reclaiming. There isn't like a hierarchy and access to knowledge.
Well, listeners, we're so lucky in this bubble. There's so much going on in the Northern Rivers, and you might want to come to some of these events. Also, you might want to do it online from where you are. So where can listeners go to find out more about all the events that are happening through reclaiming?
There's a Facebook page called Southern Earth Reclaiming. It's open to anybody who will agree to the principles of unity. And that has a list of all the events that are happening. And also give you a flavour of what it might be like to come together online doing ritual when we have CloudCatcher WitchCamp. So I'm an organiser for CloudCatcher WitchCamp that's coming up at Easter, and Jane Meredith is one of the teachers.
Did you say it's online this year?
Yes, we're taking the radical step of having a whole 4-day witch camp online, and we've put lots and lots of creativity into how we can do that so that it's sustainable for 4 days and that it will be delightful, and we'll still have moments to connect, to move our bodies, make music and love. And I'm going to have to do this. Okay, cloudcatcherwitchcamp.com.au, and we would love you to join us.
Sounds exciting.
So Megan, do you have a song you'd love us to play?
Elemental Chant by Wendy. Her music's very dear to my heart, very much part of my trainings at Priestess as well. Wendy came and gave a few private performances with the Pomegranate Grove Priestesses a few years ago. She also creates magic and ritual in her performances, and so Elemental Chant is her calling on the elements.
You two are super fierce. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for all you're doing for our community and for the earth and for the air, water, spirit, and for fire. Fierce.
Thanks for doing it with us.
Thank you, and stay fierce.
Love is the law.
Love is the law.
the center and acknowledge each quarter. The earth is my mother and I know as her daughter. The circle extends to the stars and goes on forever. Each quarter, the earth is my mother and I know as her daughter. The circle extends to the stars and goes on forever.
Thank you for listening to Fierce. This program celebrates the diversity of LGBTIQ identities and perspectives. Fierce is produced in Bundjalung Country at 2NCR Lismore and can also be heard on podcast at fiercefm.podbean.com and in New Zealand on Fresh FM, as well as all over Australia through the Community Radio Network.
Fierce FM on Spotify.